New details tonight regarding the illegal lab in Reedley. Emails reveal the California Department of Public Health told Fresno County officials not to make information public once it found out about that lab. Good evening, I'm Liz Gonzalez.
And I'm Monty Torres. We thank you for joining us tonight. Well, the Fresno County Department of Public Health shared a detailed timeline of the investigation before the information came to light to the public.
Fox 26 News reporter Myra Franco shows and explains why local officials say their hands were tied. Myra?
Liz, Monty, many people have been asking why local officials did not release information sooner about the illegal lab in Reedley. Fox 26 News learned today in these emails between the state and the county, Fresno officials wanted to let the public know, but they say they were told to be quiet due to the nature of the investigation.
This year, it's first important to remember what this community, our nation, the world went through for the last 2.5, 3 years. The COVID pandemic went on for nearly 3 years. It's commonly believed that COVID resulted from a lab leak out of the Wuhan lab in China. Worldwide, there are 769 million cases of COVID that resulted in nearly 7 million deaths. In the United States, there have been 107 million cases and nearly 1.2 million deaths. In California, there have been 103,000 deaths. China's COVID-19 virus resulted in the destruction of lives, livelihoods, the economy, and business. Children were stupidly locked out of school for 2 years and were destroyed academically, socially, and emotionally. People lost their freedoms, were forced to get experimental vaccines, to wear ineffective masks, and were lied to over and over by the CDC and government officials. Any information that challenged the lies and the tyrannical mandates that were suppressed by social media. And we had officials locally that were silent and complicit with all the unconstitutional and destructive government orders. And now they're silent again. So what do we know about this lab in Reedley? Well, on March 3rd, the Reedley code enforcement officers investigated the site after seeing an illegally attached garden hose. On March 16th, the warehouse was inspected, and it was discovered that the lab was producing COVID-19. There is blood, tissue, bodily fluid samples, and thousands of vials with fluids that are not labeled. They also found 900 mice, 200 mice that were dead. On March 16th, the representative from the company, Prestige Biotech, potentially a China national, informed investigators, quote, "These mice were genetically engineered to catch and carry the COVID-19 virus," end quote. Prestige Biotech, that company, is licensed in Nevada, not California. One address listed for this company is a vacant building in Las Vegas. Substack reports that other addresses related to this company appear to be in China, though this can't be verified at this time. And they also report that, quote, "Thousands of packages were found as well, many with shipping labels from China," end quote. On May 4th, the CDC inspected the lab and found infectious agents that were both bacterial and viral in nature. Some of these include hepatitis B and C, rubella, malaria, E. coli, and pneumonia. Fresno Superior Court documents indicate that mice were involved in these experiments with COVID-19. The lab apparently illegally disposed of medical waste, and it's believed it went to the landfill. This can't be confirmed because the operators of the lab have not been forthcoming. Now, questions that must be answered and the public has a right to know. One, is this company from China, or is it sponsored by the Chinese government? What was the purpose and goals of their experimenting with COVID-19 and having mice catch and carry the disease? What were they doing with all the bacterial and viral infectious agents found at the illegal lab? Two, are the people that were running and operating this lab Chinese nationals or American citizens? If they're not American citizens, are they here illegally? Three, and most importantly, why wasn't the public informed of this illegal lab and what was found? The Fresno County Department of Public Health public health has an obligation to notify the public of potential dangers, both past and present. During the COVID pandemic, their medical officer held weekly press conferences justifying ineffective, destructive lockdowns and mandates, and yet not even an acknowledgement to the public of the illegal and potentially dangerous activities at the lab. So he spent a week having the media come, telling the public things that were not true, supporting all of the tyrannical, destructive things that were taking place in our city, our county, our state, our nation. And then when a lab related to COVID-19 is found 5 months ago, no word. No word from him, no word from the Public Health Department, no word from the Board of Supervisors. Number 4, the Board of Supervisors are also silent. This is similar to the crisis when foster children were found to be sleeping on floors in offices. They only addressed it when they were forced to because it became public through the media. This is disgraceful and represents a willful decision to hide from and shirk their duties as elected representatives of, guess what? The public. They're responsible to the public. These same Board of Supervisors were derelict in the responsibilities to the public during the pandemic. They were silent and complicit with all of Governor Newsom's destructive, unscientific lockdowns, mandates, and forcing kids out of school for 2 years. Now we have the same cowardice from the Board of Supervisors, and they're silent again when facing another crisis in the county, again related to COVID. The public has a right to know, what did the Board of Supervisors know about the lab, when did they know it, and why didn't they inform the public? 5, are there any current potential dangers to the public as a result of these experiments and illegal dumping of medical waste that involve COVID-19 and potential infectious agents that are both bacterial and viral in nature? Are there any potential adverse impacts to the farms in the area? How about the people in Fresno County or even beyond the local area? We know COVID spread around the world. How can the public be assured no medical waste was disposed of in our water systems? Number 6, were any safety measures in place at this illegal lab to protect the public from spread of COVID or the infectious agents they were experimenting with? We believe COVID spread from the Wuhan lab, and it could have come from this lab as well. Number 7, Lemoore Naval Air Station is only 45 miles from this illegal lab. As was reported in Substack, quote, all of the F-18s for all the Navy's West Coast-based carriers are located at Lemoore. The F-18s are primary strike fighters for the United States Navy. In a war with China, these are the aircraft that we would rely upon to sink Chinese naval vessels and give us victory, end quote. The implications from the spread of a debilitating virus could be devastating to our nation's military readiness. Is the location of this illegal lab coincidence or purposeful? Now, what do we do with what we've got right now? Well, according to Joe Prado of the Fresno County Department of Health, there's currently no requirements for any lab, licensed or not, to report to the local public health department the biologicals or the testing that is being conducted. I call on the Board of Supervisors to immediately create a new law mandating this requirement in Fresno County, with the penalty of immediate shutdown if the lab is non-compliant. Additionally, there should be financial and criminal penalties for non-compliance. Secondly, Mr. Prado also stated, quote, if you don't receive public funding of any sort, you can, with private dollars, set up a laboratory in California and the United States, end quote, just like was done here. This must change on the state and the national level. There must be enough oversight to protect the public. This clearly isn't the case now, and it must change immediately. And lastly, I don't know when elected officials will learn who they work for. It's for the public. The public has a right to know that after March 3rd, 5 months ago, an illegal lab experimenting with mice with COVID-19 infectious agents, similarly as was done at the Wuhan lab 3 years ago, is going on in our backyard. The public had a right to know. The public has a right to know exactly what they know and when they knew it and what they intend to do about what's going on. Secondly, are there any other labs like this floating around? And what is happening with the people who are involved in this lab? These are the questions that I've been asked by the public. These are the questions that should be answered by the public. And the Fresno Board of Supervisors and the County Public Department of Health, Public Health, has an obligation to let people know what's going on.
To our other top story, as the public continues to learn more about the illegal lab operating out of Reedley, officials say misinformation is starting to circulate. That lab, operated by Prestige Biotech and Universal Meditech, which contain hazardous materials, biological agents, and medical waste. Good evening, and thank you for joining us for Action News Live at 11. I'm Kate Nemrich. Action News reporter Brianna Willis is tracking the fallout of the illegal lab. She joins us live in studio after speaking with city and council officials about the investigation. Brianna?
Yeah, Kate. Well, now that all of the biological agents have been destroyed at the property on 850 I Street and the existence of the lab has come out to the public, Reedley City Manager says there has been a lot of misinformation about the facility and its impact on the community. But she insists if there was ever any threat to public safety, residents would have known immediately. After the discovery of an unpermitted lab in Reedley last December, city and county officials started working with state and federal government agencies to learn more and take appropriate actions. That included getting search and abatement warrants to clear the property. While the lab contained COVID and pregnancy tests, nearly 1,000 mice, chemicals, and medical waste, officials say those items never circulated in the community or posed a health risk.
The city of Reedley took a look at their water systems. They took a look at the sewer systems. Our Department of Public Health instigated a program where they wanted to make sure that there was no immediate threat to people who lived anywhere near this particular site. And so public safety was the #1 priority for the county as well as the city of Reedley. A letter sent to Reedley City Manager Nicole Ziba from the city's fire chief on April 25th did raise concerns about the potential for a large fire at the warehouse. It mentioned a plan to evacuate one city block around the structure if needed. The chief wrote the contractors hired to inventory the site found many unmarked chemicals inside that are, quote, corrosive, toxic, and or highly flammable. Baziba says she requested the letter as part of the process to seek support.
There are myths about a letter that I asked the fire chief to write as part of the administrative procedure for documenting to the Fresno sheriff to have them come in and help us assess some chemicals.
Ziba also says the grocery store near the property is not closed due to anything that has taken place at the lab.
The myth is that it closed because the mice got into it, et cetera, et cetera. No, it closed because there's a structural roof issue, and it closed long before, when we already knew this lab was still in Fresno.
She insists the only reason residents were initially in the dark was to complete the investigation.
And I would just ask the public, it's very easy to think that government is trying to cover something, but generally there's no desire to cover anything. We might not be able to tell you something at the time, but really we will. Transparency is critical, but the timing of getting information out to the public is just as critical.
Magzit says Tuesday at the Fresno County Board of Supervisors meeting, they will be getting a full presentation from the County Department of Public Health to address the timeline of the investigation and clearing of hazardous chemicals. After that presentation, he says it will be online for the public. In studio, Brianna Willis, ABC 30 Action News.
Fox 26 News requested documents from Fresno County, specifically emails. They show the State Department of Public Health asked the county to keep some key details from the public, even as people were growing suspicious over what was going on.
We knew as soon as we came in there wearing these big suits, the personal protective equipment, cleaning out the site, residents are going to be looking around going, what's going on? And that's exactly what happened. But again, CDPH made clear, do not explain what's taking place at this site.
And these emails are proof. As early as April 28th, the county tried to revise an initial statement from the state to include the address of the illegal lab in Reedley and explain why staff would be wearing personal protective equipment. The following Monday, the Deputy Director of Communications for the Department of Public Health wrote, "We suggest you not point to the specific address and not mention PPE or law enforcement at this time, as we believe it could unnecessarily cause concern and questions."
We asked them, how can we engage with the public? And those emails show the California Department of Public Health really wanted us to be limited in what we said to the public, and we followed that direction.
When Fox 26 News originally reported on these emails and how the county was told to keep quiet, the State Department of Public Health and even the governor's office contacted our newsroom requesting a correction.
Now that these emails have been requested by the media, by your station, and these emails are now coming to light, you can see exactly the conversations that were taking place between the county and the California Department of Public Health. So I leave it to the public to decide for themselves.
How much would it help if the State Department of Public Health or even the governor's office, which has now gotten involved, how much more would it help to have them actually hear boots on the ground talking in front of the cameras and hopefully helping to put the kibosh on some of this stuff, or at least just clarify?
You know, let me tell you, with what's gone on in Reedley at this site, to me, it is an absolute travesty, and it's terrifying. The people in Reedley, I know, are very concerned with what's going on. Really, the governor's office should be here. Representatives from the state should be here talking not only to the residents of Reedley, but also the entire state of California, because to me, this is an issue that rises to that level. It is a bit frustrating that some of our partners are choosing to kind of back away and kind of wash their hands of this whole situation.
Again, we put in the request for these emails to provide you that information. Fox 26 News, by the way, did offer interviews to the State Department of Public Health as well as the governor's office. We have yet to hear back. Moving forward, MagSig tells me that the county is now looking at drafting ordinances when it comes to private laboratories, so something like this doesn't happen again, since state and federal laws need to be stronger. He says the state legislature is already looking for ways to close loopholes, and House Speaker Kevin McCarthy said last week while visiting the Valley that he wants hearings over private labs too.